Ладно, тише. Бам! Кричал. Да без звука это все. Это муха. Ну как-то вообще. Не по-человечески как-то все. Ну разве так можно? Кричать. Вот. И биться. Раз. И драться.
Hello! Some 30-40 years ago, Vyacheslav came to this earth to warn us that we are the generation which will take part in the most dramatic chapter of the shift of ages, and he left very practical and detailed prophecies for those who will decide to remain loyal to the way of light during this very interesting transition. 6 years ago, I made a video with the highlights of his prophecies, and I said, well, watch out in case something like this happens. But now, since 1 year, it has become crystal clear that he is a true prophet. That's why I revisited the material left by him and found out lots of more interesting stuff which will be hopefully presented in the future videos. This will be kind of introduction, kind of a general timeline of the events, more details about which you will hear, hopefully, in the upcoming series with his prophecies. In terms of the timing of the apocalyptic events, when to expect them, he said, I will die when I am 11, but my mother will live long enough to the time of the Antichrist. As of the end of the last year, 2020, the age of his mother was 65. He said that they will prepare meticulously for many, many long years, but when they unleash their plan, it will all start happening very, very fast. They will unleash the sicknesses they have prepared for us and will start blowing up buildings and impose absolute control on practically almost everything, besides the own people of the Lord, of course, in the name of keeping the people secure from the dacoits, you know. The segregation between the noble souls and those who will consent to bowing down to the devils will become pretty much obvious from the very beginning of the epic drama, because the parasitic entities will make it simply impossible for the noble souls to remain in the society as we know it. Police will be patrolling everywhere, demanding all kinds of papers, the precursors of the mark of the donkey, and there will be no way that the noble souls will remain in the cities, even in the initial stage. What will be their fate? Vyacheslav said that in the beginning there will be an initial period when they will feel kind of lonely and abandoned, when they realize that there isn't much of us actually. But this will be a relatively short period compared to the duration of the entire drama, because later on they will see for themselves that God will start personally helping them. In the beginning, they will find themselves alone or in small groups in some sort of remote places. Please note that I am not adjusting this story to make it fit somewhat better the current situation. It sounds almost like reading the news. No, I'm not changing even 1%, and in the end of this video I will provide link to the Russian sources where you can see for yourself that these are many years old prophecies, not recorded recently, and this is exactly what his mother said in front of the camera many years ago. What she recorded after he passed away is the main source of his prophecies. They had like an official diary they were writing, him and her, while he was still alive, and those were the official prophecies that we were supposed to get everything very detailed, but that disappeared mysteriously when his family went out of the house for his funeral. It is, of course, very sad. She herself says that this is a really very small fraction of everything of what he said. But he left so suddenly, they didn't expect. He told them out of the blue only 2 months before he was about to leave Earth. And after that, they were mostly in worry about him. And again, there were official written prophecies for humanity which disappeared. And getting back to the end time drama, the people who consent to the initial stages of marking and remain in the cities in the beginning, they will not give a penny for those stupid, in their view, backwards people who are wandering like outcasts, often even wearing old clothes because they will be refused access to normal shops. And that is again decades old prophecy. It's not something I'm adding now to make it look more relevant. Not at all. Even at that time he said, first they will make special low quality and very expensive shops for the unmarked people pretending that they are humane. But that will be quite a pathetic story because the quality and the amount of goods that one could purchase there, those will be going down like anything. The price is rising, and initially the marked people will have some heart left, and they will be giving some food from the stores, which will be opened only for the marked people. They will be giving some to their unmarked relatives, but that will not last forever. So, in the initial chapters of the drama, the noble souls will be simply left to fend for themselves. There won't be much public interest in them. Moreover, they will be captivating new styles of media and music performances, so the minds of the crowds will be preoccupied with that. Cool new concerts, this type of things. And only towards the end, when the zombified people finally realize, oh, devil does exist and I have happened to fall in his trap, only then they will remember about those people who were wandering like outcasts in the countryside. And when the zombified souls realize that, oh, I have fallen in the trap, and those people which I thought are dumb, they knew all about it all the time. Then all the zombies will turn into merciless headhunters, and they will really run to the countryside to rip off alive apart the noble people. Luckily, they won't be able to catch many of them. But at that point, the marked people who would be fully zombified by then, they would be a very sad sight. I don't know if you have seen a dog which is sick of rabies. Its sight is very clouded. It walks without registering the anything around. It really walks like possessed, wanders around, pursuing something useless. And as far as the concerts, they will be some sort of really exceptionally well-made spectacle. And even those noble souls that will try to save their children as well in the countryside together with them, even they will have this problem with the children that they will hear about these super duper concerts, and they will be finding all kinds of ways to run away from home just to see the concerts. And as far as the Antichrist, he will appear charming to the public. That's the image that they will have in their minds. And he will have some sort of super fast method of transportation, whatever that is, but he will be literally in minutes from one city to another, and people will be getting the impression that as if he's in a few places at the same time performing. And on the top of all that, Otrok Vyacheslav also mentioned, as we know from other prophecies, that time will change its pace, and it will be getting faster and faster as the chapters unfold one after another. Towards the end, the people will be barely waking up and just accomplishing few simple things, and it's already evening. The seasons will feel as if they were just a couple of weeks long and not months. And as far as the Antichrist chap, he will have his own currency even. The name of the currency will be euro. That's what Otrok Vyacheslav said some 30-40 years ago. At that time the people thought this could be some some code, and later on we'll see what it means. It turned out it is exactly like this, no need to decipher. And eventually the entire world will deal only in euros, USA being the last country to make the transition. Right before the final dollar collapse, actually the dollar will have a quite high value. And at that time, Otrok Vyacheslav said, will be the last call for people to get a good supply of simple medication or herbs, whatever they use. Because later on, when the top layer of the atmosphere simply burns up, the skies will change, its color, and will appear to be much lower. The entire atmosphere will be different, the pressure will be different, and everybody without an exception will have a constant terrible headache. And he said, and at that time there will be no aspirin even for the people to take. I don't know if that is regional prophecy, if it will be without aspirin all over the world, but whatever simple herbs you could store for such times, you still have a chance. Or you could learn how to make aspirin, for example, from the inner bark of the willow tree. But to be able to do such things at that time, you will need to have the knowledge how to do it now. And don't think, oh, when time comes, I will look it up in the internet. You may not have a computer or electricity at that time. So it's good to have such things written down now. When the Antichrist becomes a ruler of the earth, there will be no private property. The entire concept will be abolished. Everything will belong to him, and when he wishes, well, maybe kindly you can use your house by his mercy. Please note that all these events will come to be not necessarily in the order I mentioned them here. And now, in terms of the Great Famine, Vyacheslav said that it will not be very long, maybe like something like 3 months, but it will be very severe. There will be no food whatsoever. And the script, the scenario for that will be that there will be shortages, and then all of a sudden the government will provide lots of food for everybody, and there will be everything in the stores, and it will not be very expensive either. And then people all of a sudden will think, wow, actually the government cares, and they will have no worries. They will eat well for a very short period of time. I don't know if this is a regional prophecy for Russia, or something similar will play out all around the world, but there will be famine everywhere. So just before the famine starts, there will be one big feeding for everybody, and then the parasites will simply withdraw all food and lock it up in their high-tech storage places underground, which are like giant, and there is a really unbelievable amount of food everywhere, and they will lock up everything, and they will starve the earth. Many people will die of hunger. None of the noble souls, though. God will personally take care that none of his people dies of hunger. The saint Seraphim Sarovsky will resurrect. His naturally mummified remains will come back to life in front of everybody, and he will remain alive and teach for quite some time. This will be maybe something like the last call for the people to come to their senses. When Vyacheslav spoke about the future political developments, that was the period of the Cold War, and people were laughing at what he says. They said he really has a sick fantasy, because he said that period will come when Russia and America will not quarrel anymore. Actually, they will open borders, and there will be lots of Western things here in the shops. And when the time of the Third World War is near, they will start simply breaking up the Russian army apart. When the war starts, the country won't even have a proper army, which at the moment they are making, so it means we are near. And the parasites will try the usual scenario, play Muslims against Christians and try to ignite a war, but will not succeed. And then they will turn their sight towards China, and over there they will have luck. So the way you will see it play out on TV is that American and Chinese officials will start exchanging, stupid threats. The American president will be picking up stupid kindergarten level fights with China. And at the end, the Chinese will run out of patience. And war with America will seem imminent. And then the Americans will manage to kind of offer Russia to China instead of America, and that will be an easier option for them. And that's how the Chinese will receive Russia as almost a free gift without much resistance. They will reach all the way to the Ural Mountains when their appetite will start growing, said Vyacheslav. I did not hear the exact words about their plans taking over the entire world, but that's how I understood in that context, that their appetite will grow much further, and only then, finally, USA will use actually psychotropic weapons against China. Their army will go mad for all practical purposes, basically. The only antidote, the only attempt to somehow curb the Antichrist will be the pious Russian ruler who will rule for some time. Vyacheslav said somewhere around the time of the Antichrist. He will be a God-sent person for sure, and he will manage to somehow gather the noble people around him. That's what Vyacheslav said. And what did he mean by gathering? His mother asked him. He said that at that time the situation will be grave in Russia. Like there will be no question of industry. Even the ruler, he won't be able to find the fuel to fly with the airplane anywhere. Because of the terrible earthquakes and natural disasters, even very few trains will be running at that time. There will be no electric supply, at least in Russia for sure. And the only way he will be able to have a bit some of the population to travel will be like this. Wherever there are some trains on a segment which is not yet damaged, they will make kind of a plan that the people take those trains just for the given segment and then carry their luggage manually to make a connection and somehow reach the beginning of the nearest undamaged segment of railway. In overall, Vyacheslav said that much more souls will save themselves by refusing the nasty stamp of the donkey in the countries where people are not so spoiled with all kinds of facilities and conveniences. He said, sadly, in the Western world, where people are more spoiled, they will just threaten them that we will switch off your air conditioning and all of them will surrender and take the mark. While in the countries where people already accustomed to harsh life and fending for themselves in extreme conditions, over there people at least will consider living off the land somehow until the Savior comes. So not so many souls will go on the path of salvation in the so-called developed countries, but some will. When Vyacheslav said this to the people at that time in Russia, actually they didn't know the word air conditioning. They still had problems with food supply in that time. It was still difficult years. Because he was in a remote province, people have never heard about air conditioning, and they asked him what is air conditioning, and he said, well, how to explain something like a big and special fan, he said. At the later chapters of the apocalyptic drama, the lack of water, the absolute lack of drinking water, and any water on earth will be one of the main problems. We've got plenty of seas and oceans now. However, all that will disappear into these giant folds which will be opening all around the earth when it becomes unstable, when the plates start dancing. And whatever water remains trapped here and there will be a reddish thick substance which will smell and taste like the blood of a dead man. To survive, people will be forced to boil it long time before they somehow swallow it. And the way they will boil it, because it will be very, very hot that time, is they will be throwing it on the hot stones around to boil, and then they will somehow survive until the second coming of Christ. The nastiest of these giant folds will open in China. It will split the earth all the way until hell, and it will be radioactive like anything. And the Chinese will try their best to initially cover up and not tell the world about this terrible problem. Not only the unbearable heat and the lack of water, along with the lack of food, but on the top of that there will be no wind at the very end. Earlier there will be slight wind in these changed atmospheric conditions of the near future. But even that slight wind will be deadly, because all the sicknesses will be coming back, all these terrible historic plagues that we think we are over with, all of them will come back along with new, even more terrible diseases, courtesy of the labs of the parasites which we are financing now. So what will be the state of the medical care and the medical science? Otrok Vyacheslav said that it will be terrible beyond description. Initially, people will be getting very sick after their so-called treatments, and eventually they will start dropping dead in great numbers right at the time of being fixed. And only after that, after this second stage, it will come to the minds of people that we better go to healers and herbalists. Finally, they will figure out the truth. A lot of stuff will be happening, things undescribed and unmentioned by any prophecy. The poisonous gases below the Black Sea will cause a giant explosion, the sea will burn. A giant ice, something like an ice mesh, will fall on Earth. Mostly it will damage Siberia, but also some other places. It will squash many people, and it will freeze completely many regions. Attacks by angry animals. By the way, the Antichrist will mark also the animals. So attacks by insects and all kinds of biting animals will be also a big problem. Many of the species will change their behavior. Even crows will start openly attack people and inflicting vicious wounds, and not to mention the insects which will grow in giant proportions at that time. Gargantum, Loch Ness style dinosaurs will also dine on people. And these gaps that will reach all the way to the underworld, from there all kinds of human unfriendly species will crawl to the earth's surface and will also start harassing, biting and eating people. Like this story, and that now a man went to his toilet and to his great surprise and horror saw a huge python in the toilet water, actually thrown out from his neighbors. So in the same way, all kinds of creatures, and especially giant worms, which will be also intelligent, by the way, they will be able to hypnotize people. All these type of creatures will be crawling out from the sewage, from the toilets. Many people will be forced to close all these things, just not to have things crawling up there. All the heavy, tall buildings will collapse into the earth. They will, when the mantle becomes soft, it won't be able to support heavy buildings anymore, and all of them will sink in, all these factories. But at least people will not die in the factories, because by then all of them will be closed. Entire cities will be sinking in the blink of a moment as well, especially in the regions where we have wounded the earth by extracting oil. Parts of the world will be disappearing underwater, others will be clean swept by enormous tidal waves. In terms of top parasitic headquarters on Earth, the list which Vyacheslav gave is very similar to what Alexander Paramonov told us in the previous videos. I mentioned that. So the most important place for them, their central control, is in Tibet. I'm not sure if he exactly mentioned Mount Kailash, but he surely mentioned Tibet. That's where they program things centrally. Second is Lake Baikal. That during the pathetic apocalyptic drama will be their main base for flying UFOs, pretending that there are some sort of extraterrestrials arriving from other planets to save humanity from the sicknesses. They will have these spaceships exactly like those that they have prepared you for with the help of Hollywood, and they will come celebrating and healing people. When they come out of these healing booths, they will be completely zombified, and all the sicknesses would have been, of course, introduced beforehand. This will be a big time zombification tool. And people will line up, they will wait in lines in front of these so-called alien booths, which are actually operated by just devils or earthly recruits of the devils. And they've been preparing us for that scam with their department of the so-called alternative media. And the key word for that is the big disclosure. They are making the gullible people be eager for that type of fraud. Otrok Vyacheslav also very well predicted how those very intelligent intellectuals who understand all the intricacies of the sinister plot of the parasites, they will also voluntarily accept the mark of the beast, although at the times when it will not be compulsory to make a choice, they will talk as if they are against the parasitic agenda, but at the slightest pressure to make a choice, they will take the mark. That's because many of these people indeed may have a brain with slightly more processing capacity than the average Joe on the street, but making the choice will not be a question of brain capacity, but of the qualities of the personality, and they will lack in terms of integrity and goodness inside of their heart. But before they have to make a choice, they will look at the entire unfolding the events as if it is some sort of entertaining circus. And also they will be very proud that they understand the situation, unlike the masses, which believes basically the TV and the media. They will not believe the TV and the media, and they will take pride in being very learned and knowing all the intricacies of what are the parasites cooking in their laboratories and all the scientific details of the nasty stuff they're inventing. They will be captivated by the magnitude and grandeur of the cosmic event that they are witnessing, and they will know much more about the plans of the parasites than a simple old-fashioned Christian who just believes few verses in the Bible, never accept when they offer you a mark without which you cannot buy and sell, while the intellectual will talk hours to you about what exactly secret technology are they using for this mark. And at the end of the day, he will accept that mark when they're about to switch off his air conditioning. The other trap into which these intellectuals are falling is that they are so captivated by the dynamics of this theater, this story that is unfolding in front of our eyes, that they become addicted into finding out each and every detail of the action. And that's how they get exposed in the bribed alternative media, which is full of satanic symbols and ideas as well. And they pick up the satanic influence from there. I do not discourage reading alternative media. It's just a question of quantity, actually. If you're spending a few hours per day browsing that type of information, it is turning into addiction instead of a healthy inquiry. Spending a couple of hours maximum per week for a trusted alternative source is, on the other hand, just reasonable, because you must have some idea of what's going on around the world. So the next couple of videos, that will be the prophecies which give details about the general flow of events described in this video. And then I guess the last video in this series will be about the life of Otrok Vyacheslav and his mother, who for the first time in over 30 years, finally, since 1 or 2 years, has a little bit of time for herself because the constant flow of people who want to meet Otrok Vyacheslav or later on visit his burial site, that flow was pretty much constant since the time he started going to school. And over there, when he started talking with outside people, and it became clear that he reads the thoughts of people, he sees the future, he sees what's happening instantly in other parts of the world. He heals people, diagnoses more accurately than doctors. Once that became clear, the flow of people never stopped in their house, so she never had the time to rest. And now the interesting thing, which is happening all these years, this is his mother. These people were coming and inquiring about the prophecies in great numbers, also from abroad, with buses, pilgrims, so many of them. Couple of volumes were actually published with the reports of the miracles of his healing, especially after his death, when he became even more famous. And all of a sudden now, that is pretty much evident and undeniable that the intense period has started. That flow became very little. Of course, there are external reasons, like they forced with legal means to keep the grave locked a lot, but still people could come outside, and also the ban on travel. But the main reason is that actually most of the people who used to come, they were this type of intellectuals who were just there for the spectacle, for the mystery. And now that, especially in Russia, people know very well that the marking has started, at least its initial stage has started. And as everywhere else, most people found some excuse to, or at least they understand, if they are not yet forced to make the choice, they understand that they will be taking the mark, and they're simply ashamed for themselves to go at his grave now. That is the truth. Even while he was alive, and even while he was really a newborn baby, many people reported that strange feeling of fear and shame, just because he was looking at them with his very unusual eyes, by the way. Even while he was a baby, more sensitive people, even strangers and unknown people, would say, I really have the feeling that he sees through me, that he sees my thoughts, that he sees my soul. And that was scary to many people. So when it started back then, you can imagine how strong is now that the feeling, as they actually know who he is and how many miracles have happened around him. So the big flow of curious mystics and intellectuals has ceased. They are all ashamed. His mother no longer makes public appearances and does not allow video filming anymore. But she did send a message to the public via somebody at the end of the last year. Now she is alone in a remote forest area, absolutely alone. The father of Otrok Vyacheslav, that's him, by the way, he died years ago. So Otrok Vyacheslav said to his mother, you will resist, you will not take the stamp of the Antichrist, you will not take the mark, but with great difficulty. Even for you, it will be such a hard time. And currently she reports that in her immediate environment, everybody found some excuse. She's basically alone. And only thanks to the people that she's been in touch, because many sincere Christians have been visiting the grave and talking to her. She said, I'm lucky that I met these people and I know that such people exist. Otherwise, around me, nobody, everybody has taken the mark or will be taking it. So, why the Bible and the Islamic sources imply that taking the mark will be a matter of choice, while Otrok Vyacheslav, who has been sent by the Lord and the Holy Trinity and the angels, and indeed he is an incarnated angel himself, he explained that actually marking will be done by physical force. They will be catching people in the cities and on the roads, and the devices for whatever injecting, printing, it will happen on the spot. So the way he explained it, the choice will not be when they start actually chasing people physically. The choice has to be made at the very beginning, when the ordeal starts. Exactly like when you're driving on a highway, you don't decide if you will turn left or right at the moment the turn is there physically beside you. You have to decide couple of 100 meters before the turn and go in the correct lane. Later on, when you see the actual road where you have to turn, you might be driving too fast, or the lanes might be occupied, and you may not be able to make the turn even if you want to. So, in the same way, the choice will have to be made in the beginning of the apocalyptic times, and then one will be entering in the flow which one has chosen. Later on, the people who have opted for the dark side, they will have no choice. They will be physically hunted down. Exactly like Alexander Paramonov told us a year and a half ago, that now we are at this stage when people are making their choices, and even back then he said most of the people have already made their choice. Some have not yet. So we are getting very consistent information from all the reliable sources. And this is the voice of Otrok Vyacheslav. Somebody recorded him when he was playing with the other children.
Бам! Как кричал, 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 кричал. Да без толку это все. Только ну как-то вообще. Не по-человечески как-то все. Ну разве так можно? Кричать, 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 кричать.
Now, where you can find the original Russian source with the information? In this playlist, you can find the complete book about him, basically a transcript of what his mother narrated. It's called Sent by God. That's the name of the book, and over there you can find over 90% of all the prophecy which I have mentioned and I will be mentioning. Whatever minor details are not included there, they are from videos which the pilgrims have recorded when they were visiting his mother. Of course, you can find lots of free PDFs online with this book. And then this is basically a video version of the book. While his mother was dictating the book, they filmed, and then they made 2 films about him. Film 1, that is about his personal life, and film 2 is about the prophecies. It seems there are some translations. I see English subtitles of film 2. I don't know if the quality of the translation is good. And also I could find only 2 of the 4 parts of film 2. This is a free software which allows you to download YouTube videos in MP3 format, or actually even entire playlists very easily. I would advise you to download everything on my channel about the end times because they will outlaw such information. I don't know if it will be months or years before they do that, but they will. The official Orthodox Church has not yet canonized officially Otrok Vyacheslav as saint. Naturally, they're doing their best to postpone it as much as possible because he revealed in detail how they will be bought and sold by Satan. But countless true Christians have already canonized him in their hearts and churches. This is one of the countless icons of him, and this is an akathist hymn devoted to him, and the Orthodox priests serve in their churches ceremonies glorifying and revering him in the way they honor all other saints in Orthodox Christianity. A viewer is asking what to do when one is too sick to prepare or do anything. Of course, if one is really unable to prepare externally, well, what to do? You cannot do the impossible. That's why you will have to pray intensely that the Lord and the destiny, they do the external arrangements for you. However, if you feel that the sickness is preventing you from intensifying your internal preparations, your internal work, like freeing yourself of addiction, praying more, strengthening your spirit, meditating, if you feel that the sickness is preventing you doing these things, then it could be more laziness than sickness. And in general, of course, most of the people who do not do anything under the pretext of sickness, they're just lying to themselves and the people around, because they wouldn't be so comfortable with their own conscious if they admit to themselves that, okay, I'm taking the mark of the beast by my own choice. So that's why they will prefer to lie even to their own self that I have got some sort of excuse and there is no other way. But I don't imply that this is the case with you personally. I just say most people, because by far the most people will be taking the mark and they need some sort of excuse, you know. Another viewer is asking about inflation and also dried fruits and vegetables for food storage. All I know about inflation was already mentioned. I've got nothing else to add, but yes, it is very interesting with the dried fruits and vegetables. It depends how much moisture is them. If they are really properly dried, which I've got no clue how to determine if that's the case, then they will definitely last 10 or even 20 years. So I've got no clue which types of fruits and vegetables exactly will last long, but the drier they are, the more chance they have got. And recently I bought from a store for hamster food just samples of different dry vegetables to see how they taste. Also, because I know that they sell the exactly same thing, you know, with the same manufacturer, but they also sell it as food for people. That's why I bought with confidence. And some of the things are very good. For example, the carrots were the best. They were sweeter and better than most brands of dried carrots for people. The hamster carrots were better. And all this hamster food is very, very cheap. That is the thing. And I guess they will be adding less chemicals there because, you know, they're mostly targeting humans now. They not hamsters, not so much. So the dried parsnips for hamsters, they were a great surprise. Very, very tasty. You could make soup with them. Also, they're very dry. I think they're suitable for 10 years storage. Dried parsnips. And also, you could eat it like even raw without any cooking. So that is highly recommended. Also, the dried red paprika, very sweet and tasty. Also, I cooked it and it was nice, and also as it is, very tasty. I didn't like the dried hamster tomatoes. I don't know why. Also, I got some celery. I wouldn't recommend it. It wasn't that tasty, and also there were stones inside. And also I got some dried parsley and celery stems from the hamster shop. That was like dirt cheap, and they were a bit too hard. Yes, you can put them in the soup, but then you will be able to chew only on half of them. But depending on what situation, they could seem very tasty to you in the future. Also, the price is almost negligible, so why not get a couple of kilos? And how to pack? Only vacuum packing, nothing else. Another point that crossed my mind about food storage and expiration dates is how is it gonna work when time starts flowing faster and faster? That's really a good question. So maybe everything will last longer. I really don't know.
Ладно, тише, тише. Да! Да, кричал, 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 кричал. Да без толку это все. Это ну как-то вообще. Не по-человечески как-то все. Ну разве так можно? Кричать, кричать, кричать,
Phil is asking why the world has to be so insane and cruel. Actually, the people themselves make it like this, but because they don't understand how they shape their reality and exactly. After not understanding how events are being formed, they blame God. Let's see a very fresh example from France. Similar protests, again in France, a year ago, definitely postponed the satanic plan, but did not in any way derail it. Now that it is obvious that it is a worldwide plot and plan, and that most people have joined the dark forces, and they will be members of the dark team. They are becoming officially recruits. All these protests are pretty much waste of time. What? To postpone the things a few more months? Is it really worth? By going to such protests, you also risk getting hurt or poisoned by the gases or jailed. Don't forget that in the previous video they were warning us that they will be overfilling the jails with people who will be subsequently marked almost by force. So guess with what kind of people do they plan to overfill the jails? The really wise thing that these protesters actually could do is to educate themselves about the prophecies. They have these amazingly accurate French prophecies of Mary Julie Jahenny, which here, as you can see, already start happening. The government is framing up people exactly as she predicted. I mean, and countless other signs that she was a genuine prophet. All these protesters have never inquired. They have probably never heard about her. The wisest thing for them would be, actually, because these are city people, to hurry up and sell their city homes as soon as possible and run to the countryside. If they cannot find a house or hut to buy over there, it is already such a desperate situation that it's better to just buy a supply of building materials, and if needed, dig a simple underground home. That's relatively easy to build even without specialists and building contractors. Also, in many countries, actually, such homes they will pass under the category of cellar, and in many cases they will not even need the building permit. There are plenty of free plans for such homes online, and they are very low-profile homes, hidden. They don't look attractive for thieves, easy to build, very cheap, relatively warm in winter even without heating. Because let's be realistic, what is the future of all these protesters? Regardless of whether they postpone the measures somewhat or not, at the end they will be told, we are switching off your air conditioning, and most of them will be marked. Here, French medical staff is protesting in similar mood. They don't understand that what they are doing is that they're desperately trying to save a satanic structure of the medical care that is a satanic institution. No matter how hard they try to resist, it will be only a question of time that they will be fired and somebody else will be hired. If these medical workers were really wise and they wanted to do something meaningful, something with real results, they would also run to the countryside and educate themselves about the natural herbs and store as much herbs as possible, because in the future the people, they will need herbalists, but there will be no supply, there will be no qualified herbalists. So for these people with some medical background, the wisest is to educate themselves urgently and store herbs for the people. Why the world is so insane? Because people still listen to Alex Jones and think that they have resistance by wasting their time and actually poisoning their minds with his words. What does he have to say? It is already so bad, and in this moment, if people still do not wake up, we are lost, we are lost, we are lost. How preposterous. Of course, the masses will not wake up. Now that is obvious. So what, everybody is lost? No. He's just deviating you from the words of God. Who sent all these prophets and messengers to us, so many of them, hoping that we will finally understand that in this theater, the salvation will be only on personal level. We cannot rely on any organization or some sort of a worldwide liberation movement. This is not gonna happen.
Ладно, тише, тише. Да! Да, кричал. Да без звука это все. Ну как-то вообще. Не по-человечески как-то все. Ну разве так можно? Кричать.